I see a photo of you now. Now I see the real you.
There we go. That's nice.
Looking good.
Where are you in Italy?
I am, yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very
And you're in
nice.
Thailand, yeah?
I'm I'm now in Thailand.
Wow. And you're dressed up in the full monk's gear there, yeah.
Yeah. This is a yogi.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But you were originally from America, yeah?
I lived in Los Angeles my whole life. And during the past 3 years, I've been living in Thailand.
Okay, so that's some awakening. You really putting it into action, though.
It was a long journey, but you can study the path and look it all over. But then there comes a time when you have to walk the path and you have to really take it to fruition. All of the deep spiritual knowledge that you find along the way, it just keeps propelling you forward and it keeps showing you new opportunities. And sometimes it'll take you across the world to a whole new environment. And you just have to remember every day why you're doing what you do and truly love it and truly hope that it can help all beings.
Wow, because I know you had a long way to get to where you are, but excuse me, you're really putting it into practice, and that's fantastic to see.
I also was checking out your YouTube and I was really impressed with your creativity and really putting out your art, because in today's materialistic world, everybody's just consuming and nobody is really creating a new world, creating something new that we don't have to consume that somebody else has given us. So I respect all artists so much. And it's always been my calling on Instagram to encourage other artists and musicians and writers and chefs and all, whoever you are, whatever creative industry you work in, keep creating every day and keep sharing it on social media, because this is how we will really affect the world visually and creatively. And I think we are the forefront of the new earth. The new look and feel of the new earth is going to be in the hands of the creative people.
Wow. Yeah, when I came across you, I really felt you're a kindred spirit. Probably on the other realms, in another incarnation, we were in the same academy. You were obviously in the visual department, and I was in the audio department. But we got the same schooling. Yeah, we're on the same direction.
Absolutely. I think that even when I was younger, I studied music theory for years. My mom took me to music classes, piano when I was young. And then when I went to middle school, I played percussion. So I played the whole thing, snare, timpani, xylophone, bells. And that was only about 2 years. And then when I got to university, I went to art school. That's when I really discovered my artistic abilities, because I had always lived as a graphic designer since a very young age, playing with the computer, designing things, being obsessed with Star Wars and space. So I had this graphic design passion, hobby that I took through art school. And then I had a career out of it for 10 years after I graduated. So I was a freelance graphic designer. And during that time, I was slowly starting to discover consciousness, meditation, spiritual knowledge, the whole thing, psychedelics. And it got into more esoteric topics such as secret space program and UFOs and higher dimensional beings. And the list goes on and on for days and years. So as an artist and a designer, coming across metaphysical knowledge really changed my life, really made me consider what I was really doing with my artistic talent. Whether am I just doing this for clients to make some money, or am I going to do this to change the world? And, 10, 12 years fly by. And then this is the moment when I created the Great Awakening map. I think you may be familiar with it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it is my one-page meme that I created that would list as many rabbit holes and red pills on one page as possible. And I just sort of let it go into the interwebs, and a lot of people began to discover it. And I think that the journey through the map is something that hundreds and thousands of people have been able to relate with. And the topics that I put on the map are things that are able to change your life like forever. It could be something as simple as eating organic food, or meditation, or, studying something about yourself that people may not have known, such as psychic abilities or the third eye, or learning how to lucid dream at night or astral travel. I mean, things like this are able to change your life within an instant. Because once you know that your consciousness is not just local to your body, you can actually see across the universe if you so wish. It takes training and practice and some good luck. But, there's so many things on the map that I want people to realize about themselves. Therefore, they may find true inner peace and what is known as wisdom. And I think this wisdom will always translate to being more at peace, which in turn you are more able to heal the world, bring peace to the world. Inner peace is world peace. And if you look at it on a macro scale, world peace will lead to cosmic peace, because there are beings in other galaxies and dimensions who are all watching this planet at this time. And to be aware of the entire big picture of reality is the point of what I do on Instagram. It's the point of the Great Awakening Map. And it's been where my art career has sort of been showing others at this time of my life.
Yeah, I've heard people see the map. For example, they just walk in, somebody's put it up in a school or somewhere people are passing through, and then they recognize one part. They recognize, but it's it's a great design, isn't it? The colors you chose and the typeface, it's all those years of training were for a purpose. So I myself, I was a copywriter, so I
That,
worked also in an agency perfecting the written word, and I use that training now also in my communications. And so when people see part of the map, they recognize one part, and then okay, I recognize this part, and then they check out other things, and it expands their reading and their consciousness. So it's a very practical tool, no?
when I was checking out your content, I saw the typeface you used for pod songs. And for someone like me who is obsessed with typefaces, when I saw that, I immediately knew that you knew what was up. And I was like, okay, I would love to do a show with this guy. He knows he's a great, he's got
So
style.
you are based on the typeface, choice of type.
Always, graphic designers will always choose products based on their typeface alone.
But also the color of the paper you used, it draws people. Is that to create a feeling of trust, or what was the thinking behind the creation?
If you want to know a secret, all of the designs that I have done leading up to the map, I chose hyperdimensional colors. And these are colors that I saw on psychedelic journeys. So when I was doing deep meditations using psychedelics, I would see these very ethereal and beautiful, terrifyingly beautiful realms. And in these realms, I would be shown color patterns and color combinations that I would have never thought of prior to having a psychedelic experience. So for an artist and a designer to see new visual imagery that they've never seen in their entire life after studying the entire art history canon, this is what really drew me to the higher dimensional realms and to the healing power of psychedelics and all of the secrets that they reveal of the universe. There's so many secrets within the psychedelic realms that we can't even fathom. And so for someone like myself as an artist coming back from those realms, it's nearly impossible to remember things in minute detail. But what you can bring back are glimpses and emotions that come with you and they stay and they leave. So for an artist, bringing back color combinations and abstract ways of displaying the hyperdimensional realms is something I try to share through my artwork. And I don't know if you ever seen my landscapes of the hyperspace, but that's an entirely different art career that I've
I'm
done. And then the map is just something that was reset. So the colors that you may see on my website are hyperdimensional colors. I don't think any other people would pick that up on those things, but that's my secret of why the look of it is a certain way.
wow, an exclusive. That's fantastic.
So you found me from Lucas's podcast.
Yes,
And
Lucas
then,
Pack's podcast, because I was
okay,
supposed to be a guest on his show. I'm a guest in the future. You were a guest in the past, and so
yeah, I've been with him, I think 2 or 3 times.
yeah, no, it's really long conversations, and yeah, super insightful. I really get feeling of a great vibration from you, a real that you're really putting it into practice, and that's why I asked to speak to you.
It all started with meditation.
Okay.
Like 10 years
Well,
ago, I discovered meditation. And ever since then, the transformation starts to take place within yourself consciously and heart centeredly. And then you just start finding new people and you start having new opportunities come into your life. It just becomes, like creative people, we have a sort of meditation when we're doing our art. And also if you do training in meditation practices, your mind starts to change in a way that brings you, I think it brings you more of a confidence in life. With whatever you end up pursuing, there's success in it. And it's like miracles just keep happening to you. New doors keep opening that you just walk through. But if you had never trained your mind or started to study or care about consciousness, I think that people would still struggle through life and feel a victim to everything and just never really get out of the matrix, get out of the cage that they've been programmed to believe they've been in since birth.
I know when I think back to people I've met at that maybe I didn't like through my life, and their qualities that they manifested. When I think back, those were qualities that I was manifesting as well. So that's why I was coming into contact with those people.
Right. At those times, we wouldn't understand that. But looking back, you
Yeah.
can see the whole view when you're up higher on the mountain and you look down, you can see all the paths leading up and you can see why you had to meet certain people or why you acted a certain way. And I think that's all part of the spiritual journey, is to be able to look back and say, okay, this is where I need to change. And this is where I want to go in the future.
I think there's also a karmic aspect that we get more truths when our karma improves as well.
Always. That's the whole reason why all of the Tibetan monks preach about meditation, because through meditation, healing oneself inner peace will allow oneself to better help the world in ways that they wouldn't be able to because they would be too shy or too scared. So meditation really makes one more courageous and really puts one into action to make a difference now, rather than just sitting around and hoping that somebody else will do it.
Because you also talk a lot about service to others, and that's the way to progress. You have it in the map. Service to self drags us down. In another map, a triangle, and in service of the one, service to
Right.
others raises our consciousness.
Somebody who is living in ignorance is somebody who only looks at themselves and always struggles to help themselves first. But as you start to ascend spiritually and consciously, your inkling for service to others begins to increase naturally. So the more somebody is able to heal themselves, the more they are able to automatically and naturally want to help others. And this is just an altruism and a compassion that develops from anybody who is on the spiritual path. They should be somebody who is starting to look to others, help others before themselves. And this is the way that the Bodhisattvas live. They choose to incarnate to help other beings. And they vow to keep doing it and doing it until all of samsara is emptied of all negative, of all negativity, which is quite a feat, which is quite a dedication. And there's all sorts of bodhisattvas. Sometimes they're called light workers, star seeds, indigo children, old souls. I'm sure that you and I are lumped in there somewhere in our incarnations here.
I'd like to think so. What is your understanding of the cycle of reincarnation?
That's something that's quite new. Like 10 years ago, I didn't care about this stuff at all. And then when you start to study metaphysics and consciousness, you start to learn that, hey, when you die, your consciousness doesn't just disappear into a vacuum. It actually continues on and it goes to other realms and you see different places. Like when you have psychedelic visions, I was able to see realms past death. And these realms are also known as the bardo, which are known as stages in Buddhism. So when I was having my psychedelic journeys, I was able to see like very, very bottom of the bardo before you even enter it, just barely, and I was like witnessing all these beautiful visions and scenes of temples and languages that I've never studied or even known in my life. So at this moment, I realized, okay, if I'm seeing all of these languages that I've never studied, this means that within my consciousness, there are memories of past lives. And, I've been in Thailand, I would ask Thai monks this question and they would, just so casually say, yeah, these are memories from your past life. And, I studied all sorts of things of the Tibetan Buddhists because they're experts of the afterlife. And they always say that these images and these visions are all things that you've developed through your karma from this life and past life. So, it's like, it's just so obviously known to them. But for the Western mind, it's something that we grapple with still because the Western mind just cannot believe things that are of a spiritual nature.
Because you put in one of the maps here that's there's 6 lower realms and 4 higher realms. And so in our understanding, I thought it was the other way around. It's 6 higher and 4 lower because each of the chakras is a realm of consciousness. And there's 6 above the root chakra and 4 below.
Right. In the Buddhist literature, it can be said that there are 6 realms, and the lowest would be like the demon realms. And then as you get up to the middle, it'd be the humans. And then above the humans, there's 2 realms known as Asura and then the God realms. But the God realms isn't the limit because gods still have a sort of attachment to samsara. So above the God realms, you would have the pure lands or the Buddha fields. And then there would be 3 or 4 Buddha fields that pertain to the state of Buddha mind consciousness that one can attain. This is referred to as enlightenment. And within those realms, I don't think a being is required to be reborn because even God realms, the gods will have to be reborn after eons and eons of time. But once you reach Buddha mind, once you reach full enlightenment, I think you have full control of where you want to end up being, whether it's in the Pure Lands or whether you choose to incarnate back onto Earth or samsara, which is what a lot of bodhisattvas do. A lot of Buddhas come back in this way. So you can look at the lower realms and the higher realms in this aspect. But if you study literature from other spiritual traditions, it will always be different. It will always have some kind of different levels and names for them. But the one that I chose is particularly from studying the bardo of Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism.
So what happens when we're not incarnate on this earth, when we died? Between the what is your understanding of the life between the lives?
I've studied metaphysics and I've studied Buddhism. And when you study metaphysics and consciousness researchers, especially past life regressionists, they study that realm throughout the majority of their clients. Because whenever somebody is in a past life regression, they have memories between lives. And these between lives are usually where they meet people who have passed away. They meet past family members. They go to like this realm of happiness and love and peace and light and bliss. And they are able to communicate with their higher self, which is and higher aspect of you that knows about all of your spiritual lessons that you've ever had as a soul. And you have the option of going back to Earth and completing soul lessons that you weren't able to complete, or you have the option of just hanging around the higher realms and maybe visiting other planets or whatever. But in Buddhism, it seems that your karma determines where you go. If you are somebody who has bad karma, you may not be able to be reborn as a human. You may be stuck in lower realms, such as the pretas, the demons, animal realms, realms where you're not able to study the Dharma, which allows you to attain enlightenment. Because to attain enlightenment, you need to have a human body. That's why it's so fortunate for us to be born on this world where we are actually pursuing and talking about this type of knowledge. So the Buddhists have this belief where the karma determines where you go. It's sort of like a momentum, energetic momentum. And whether you do good deeds or bad deeds, this energy is what propels your consciousness through the bardo. So somebody who's living in fear their whole life, when they reach the bardo after death, that fear is going to pull them down to a lower rebirth. But somebody who is like a very high lama or a high monk or yogi, these people will be at full peace and love when they pass away at the moment of death. And at the moment of death, their consciousness is not going to just switch off. They're going to be able to be aware of the entire process between their body ending, their last breath ending, and their consciousness continuing on forward. And they're going to be able to hold this awareness that they are here now in the present moment, rather than worrying about the past or fearing the future like most people do when they die. That propels them into rebirths that they don't want. So the calm, practiced Dharma practitioner, when they die, they're going to be able to enter pure lands or higher realms, and they will be able to prevent themselves from entering a rebirth which they don't want. So this is the pure truth of Dharma, of Buddhism, which isn't very well known. But the reason why I practice Dharma is because I want to go to the pure lands, because I've seen like a taste of this during my psychedelic journeys. So I have that with me. Other people are not going to have that. They're not going to have that inspiration. But for me to have seen that something already, that this is what's really like giving me the nudge to keep going, because I've seen so many remarkable things outside of my body, out of body. So I have that inspiration to keep going and to study and to prepare myself for death at any time. It's more like an art of living, art of dying sort of thing.
So yeah, it's my understanding of it as well, is that you go to the realm of just desserts. So if you are intelligent and spiritually enlightened on this physical realm, when you go to the other realm, you go to a higher realm because you have a higher consciousness. But if you're a schmuck here, you don't suddenly go onto the other realms and contact all infinity and see the scope of everything. You're still a schmuck there because every the different the electromagnetic spectrum at different points. But it's still right here. But it is a darker place. It's not a place you want to be. But then the lower you go, the hells, and then you are more physical in that respect. They're darker, and you live out a realm of you go through an incarnation that you want to experience. If you're into that sort of stuff, that sort of stuff goes on there. You know, it's the same as in this on this realm, physical realm. When you're in the cities, you go to the streets, which you vibrate at, don't you? You don't go and hang out in a church if you want to have a good time and do some drugs and in a disco or something. So it's the same. You gravitate towards, and the same when we die, we go for that experience, and then we're reborn, and then we go there, and then we come here, and then we're reborn there, here, there. We're in two cycles of reincarnation here and on the astrals.
if you want to know your past lives, they say you should just examine your current situation, the types of people you're involved with, the types of jobs that you do, whether you're happy, whether you have abundance, whether you are suffering, whether you have good luck. They say to examine yourself now. And if you want to know your past life, and if you want to know your future, then you have to examine yourself right now. Decide, okay, this is what I'm going to choose.
And that's also, I understand you can't go backwards into an animal form, and only in a few rare cases, because physically your soul, your consciousness is too big to get back, to cram back into a lower being. And I also think there's an element of this amalgamation of consciousness, in that as we progress back to the universal source, there's an amalgamation. So plants into insects, into animals, into humans, and as we go up through the beings, consciousness amalgamates into greater clumps. And so you can't go back unless you've been, I guess, very bad, and you're broken up into more component parts to relearn lessons back up into the great cycle.
Right. I think one of the worst spiritual deeds that anybody could do is suicide, because that destroys your momentum, your soul growth. And it's what really propels a being down into lower realms, however you want to define lower realms. So once you join back with the oversoul, there's always going to be a bigger oversoul and a bigger oversoul. And this is where all the information and the data that we've gathered as animals, as human being, as whatever, all of this knowledge and data goes back to this Akashic record, if you want to call it that. And the consciousness is always going to keep learning about itself more and more. This God nature, this source nature of the universe wants to keep learning about itself and learning how to return back to itself. It likes to explode out into trillions of sparks, and these sparks are sometimes may take eons before it starts to realize that it's part of the greater whole. And this enlightenment of returning back to the one mind, the one source, the one creator, this is the point of the spiritual journey, is to return back to source. Return to source is what it says on the top right of the Great Awakening map. And that is the ultimate spiritual destination, is returning to who we truly are, not here lost as humans, thinking that we're separate from everything, but to return back to the truth that we were always the one. We were always God. We were always the creator. We were always everything. But as soon as we forget that we were everything, that's when we start to attain ignorance, which is a belief that we are separate from the oneness. So anytime that a being, regardless of whether they're gods or whether they're demons, any being who believes that they're separate, it's me versus them mentality. That creates karma, that creates negative karma, that creates ignorance. And that's the reason why beings end up in unfortunate situations throughout their lives. It's a forgetting of the true nature of creation.
Exactly, that illusion of separateness creates the selfishness, which stops our evolution and drives us into involution. And we don't
It's a
know why.
self-grasping.
Self-grasping, yeah.
Yes.
We don't know why the divine chose to split itself up, because we can't know the mind of God, but we do know that we all agree we're on our way back to the source as conscious gods, because God must want to learn something, if we're all divine sparks.
Our entire universe is a non-dual universe. So for somebody like you who's a musician, you take music and you can either create a visual form of it, a written form, or you can create the audio version of it, which we listen to. But anybody who listens to music. Some people have synesthesia, so they'll see colors, they'll see shapes, such as myself a little bit. This is all non-dual. There's no solidity to it. But as humans, we try to create solidity by making it into a CD-ROM, or we have a written form of music. This starts to create an objective form of music that's not truly music, because you cannot look at a sheet music and hear the music in your mind. So the moment that we take the non-dual nature of reality, we start to try to make it concrete. We try to solidify it. We try to make it permanent. That's when ignorance emerges into the universe. That's when self-grasping emerges. And that's what the Buddhists try to eliminate, is this grasping onto reality, trying to make everything permanent when everything is naturally impermanent. Everything is non-dual by nature. And to live in that non-dual state of mind is what a Dzogchen yogi practices. So every day I practice staying within this non-dual state of mind, whether I'm sitting in meditation, whether I'm walking, whether I'm riding my scooter, whether I'm all times of the day. And the more that we start to see reality in this true nature, this non-dual nature, we become closer and closer to what is known as enlightenment, where we are able to finally end our suffering due to our emotions being out of control, not understanding that these emotions are just impermanent things that just rise and disappear on their own like clouds in the sky. So a Dzogchen yogi like myself, we meditate by looking at our thoughts. We look at the thoughts rise and we look at them vanish on their own. This is the meditation practice. And the more that you keep doing this over and over throughout the day, just being aware of your thoughts occurring and then vanishing on their own, eventually you're just going to be sitting or enjoying your day and you're going to notice the thoughts come up, like a thought of anger or a thought of jealousy will start to arise. But once you realize it's already arising, it's just going to vanish on its own, like instantly. So that's the point of the non-dual meditation. It's a very advanced meditation because not a lot of people are able to understand the dual nature of mind. But for those who are able to practice this type of Vajrayana Buddhism, Dzogchen, I think it's the quickest way to ending one's suffering from not just this lifetime, but from countless eons of lifetimes. I'm literally ending the wheel of karma of things that I've done in past lives that I may not even know in this life. But the more that you are aware of your thoughts arising and just disappearing on their own, the more that you can understand the true nature, the natural state of mind, which is known as the Buddha nature. It's something that we all have. You and I have it right now. But when we are angry and when we are attached to our emotions, that's when we lose our Buddha nature. We start to believe that it's about me versus the world, like once again. And the moment that you start to self-grasp, remember that's what I said. That's when the entire spectrum of sin starts to occur. Ignorance, the bad stuff, the lower realms.
Yeah. The masters say ignorance is the only crime on our earth, because if we have ignorance of I think they're referring to the law of karma, because we chose free will as opposed to freedom within the law of karma sometime in our ancient history, and that's what's driving us down, because we don't act like the higher beings. We don't act within the law of karma. So. Yeah, I saw you had Maldek on the map as well, and also what got you into started this journey was a picture of Saturn with a hexagon on the top. And I thought that was really interesting because you have the also going back to the map, you have the Galactic Federation there and Saturn as the Intergalactic Council on there. I just wondered so the stages before we go back to the one, of enlightenment, returning to the source. So when we raise, because we raise kundalini on this planet too, and once we've raised kundalini, we go through enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, and ascension. According to your understanding, is that when we return to the source?
If somebody is able to be lucky enough to study kundalini and activate their chakras and do all of that stuff, I think those are physical experiences that determine their state of being right now, presently. But after the kundalini awakening occurs, you still have the rest of your life to live. You're still a human. And I think what truly matters is the moment that you die, where your consciousness is going to go determines the types of spiritual activities you've done in this lifetime. So a true return to source has many different gradations to it. Somebody may end up going to higher realms, but they may not go to the pure lands. They may not go all the way back to source. Because when you study past life regressions, some people don't go all the way back to source. Some people go to, I don't know what to call it, but they go to higher realms where they see certain things and beings and they travel the universe, but they don't really go back to source yet. So I think it determines whether a soul is into that type of spiritual journey or whether they are still looking for something else, Because if you don't care about the source, there's no reason why you would return there. You have to know about it. You have to be prepared to return back to it. Because in Vajrayana Buddhism, returning to the source is referred to as Samanta Vajra. And it's a state of mind that's known as the all good, what it translates to. Buddha Samanta Vajra is this all good mind that is the highest aspect of returning back to source, I think. And if you study the law of one, they refer to this state as a Buddhic consciousness. They actually use the word Buddha in the law of one teachings. And it only occurred twice in all of the writings of the law of one. So for the law of one to even mention the word Buddha in terms of the highest state of density, the highest consciousness that one can achieve, which is the oneness of all, I think that really says something of what it means to return to source. And I think that truly returning to source is a place where there's no grasping, there's no attachment, there's no craving, there's no aversion. It's a pure non-dual equanimity of consciousness. And that's from that state, I think that's where creation began. Creation began once that equanimity was sort of disturbed and it wanted to have something. It wanted to separate itself, believing that it was an entity versus something else, a separation. So I think the primordial oops occurred when the equanimous mind of creation started to want to have something, a craving that created a duality between its already oneness. And then by creating a duality, that automatically makes it have me versus the rest of the universe.
Okay. Because as I understand it, there are a few more stages after ascension. So when Kundalini rises, is even if naturally that's what happened to the Buddha and Jesus and all the masters is it rises up the spine and activates all the chakras, and then you don't, even if you don't do Kundalini yoga, the service is in this age in our age, the Aquarian age, service is the way to raise Kundalini naturally. So it's a physical process that's how we bring it up the front, in the pleasure way, in our way now, because we're very involved. But once we can fully attain, once we're open and we have reached this stage of ascension, then we can either go into these other experiences on other planets, into other into other life cycles, because we're in a classroom here, or we can go into the spiritual hierarchy of Earth as as one of the masters on this planet, serving all, you know. Um, so I think that's sort of the way I understand it. Does that ring any bells?
Absolutely. If you study the Indian Mahasiddhas, they activate their kundalini during their experiences with yoga, and they are able to attain true enlightenment, I think, in this lifetime. They truly become Buddhas, and their consciousness is able to go to the higher realms, and they are able to come back and bring great benefit to all beings in however the way they wish. So for the Indian Mahasiddhas who actually do activate their kundalini and publicly display these feats for people to learn and to follow them, I think that's one way of ascending. It's one path. I think your karma is going to determine whether you find that path or whether you find a path sort of like mine, where we solely train the mind rather than training the body through the channels and kundalini, like you were mentioning. So every path is going to be karmically matched to your level of understanding of where you've been in your past life and what you are able to comprehend and pursue in this life. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense because all these other things that you have on the map, like the Council of Saturn, interplanetary parliaments, they are there. We must be able to get there now. We can't just return to the source. We have to go through all the experiences. So, you know, we have been in the past. I think the teachings were that you could go into a cave, you could divorce yourself from humanity, do these practices, these meditations, and then you would come out and be in even greater service to humanity because you're a master. But because of the quickening, because of this great awakening, there's no time now to do this. So we have to do this service to all, and then the karmic effects are multiplied now, and it is the it has become the fastest path, which is quite strange.
I think that social media has truly helped with this, is accelerating our consciousness with all of this spiritual knowledge that you and I are discussing right now. Without social media, we would never be having this conversation. So the social media aspect is more like a global telepathy, but it's through our phones that we have this telepathic connection to one another. And it's helping others find these spiritual paths that are highly quickening our ascension into the new earth, a higher state of consciousness for this entire, not just this entire planet, but this entire solar system, all the beings in our solar system, inner earth and outer space. There are beings within our world, within the inside of all the moons, stuff in our solar system. All these beings are having an ascension right now because our solar system is passing through an area of space that naturally increases our consciousness at this time in the galactic cycle of all the things happening. So that's why we're having this conversation, because our consciousness is expanding naturally, which is making us pursue these esoteric paths in order to become a better me, a better person, a better whatever you want to call it.
That's a positive way to say it about all social media. But when you think back to Lemurian times, and if we were all telepathic, we didn't even need to put out things like that, did we? Text messages. We were all just very connected.
Right.
So we had
During the
all
telepathic time, you would have to be a fully healed being in order to live in society, because all your thoughts would be open for everybody.
yeah.
So at that level of society, most people have spiritually healed themselves already. They don't carry around any fear or judgment or any uh, past karma that would harm other beings. So I think to have a truly 5D society, you have to be a fully realized being at the aspect of not having any sort of negative karma or any negative intentions, because the entire society can read everything.
Mm. Well, going back to Maldek, we have this negative karma because before we lived on Maldek, which is now the asteroid belt, and
Yeah.
we probed the atom. We developed nuclear weapons at that time and destroyed the planet, which is a living being, which is a cosmic master, millions of lives more evolved than us. We came to Earth. We're in the Lemurian civilization for millennia, and then we developed nuclear weapons again. The Earth turned on its axis because we're karmically not allowed to destroy another being. We go back to the swamp, crawl out of the swamp, create Atlantis for a couple of million years. Earth turns again, back to the swamp, and now we're just crawling out now in the last couple of thousand years. So, and I think this is the last chance. This is our last time on this Earth before the next master comes, and then we go to another planet. Those who are not ready to stay on this Earth. So that's the big change everyone's talking about. But yeah, it's important to be positive.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you know the history of our human history. And
Well,
the more that we know about these things that are off world and inner world, I think it really helps frame one's spiritual journey to truly understand their role in this entire universal game that we're living in. So to know the history of our civilization, going all the way back to Maldek, all the way forward to the great solar flash, is what a lot of people believe will occur very soon, which is when our sun has a natural release of light energy, which is different from a solar flare. This is like a light healing energy that is said to propel the consciousness of all living beings to a higher dimension, higher density. And whether this is going to happen within our lifetime or shortly after, I think that it's very interesting that this light is sort of like a reset. It's sort of like a galactic reset for civilizations, where it's able to wake up all the beings to their God nature. And it's able to push out all negative beings, karmically push them off our planet. And it gives us sort of like a reset, a spiritual reset, to find out who we've been through all of this darkness that's been with our planet for so many generations that we cannot even see the light. So I think that studying what happens in space and studying all of these galactic civilizations and ET beings, to hear what they all have to say from different stories, from different viewpoints, it all comes down to this planet, what's happening right now, our awakening of our consciousness. Is our human civilization going to be able to make it to a 4D, 5D society, or are we going to destroy ourselves? But the consensus is that we're going to make the leap to a higher civilization, and we already are in the process of it. It just seems like everything's going to chaos because we watch the news too much. You turn off the television, you'll start to realize that our world is actually a really peaceful place, and it's slowly healing itself and becoming more aware of the true nature of reality. So all of the things on the map, all of the things that you mentioned, they're just stepping stones to help somebody see the truth of reality and to wake them up and to make them pursue a life that is worth living, a life that can change their spiritual path, not just now, but in the future, and help all other beings in the process.
it's interesting you talk about great cosmic events like that because the great flash, because my understanding also with karma is that a job is always given for karmic reasons, I think, is always given to the person lowest in the class because they get the most benefit from it, yeah? So even though, so we have, because the law of one is an example of a channel teaching, but we also have through Dr. King, the 9 freedoms. So he gives us a detailed explanation of what happens after after cosmic consciousness ascension, once you're an ascended being, then you go into this interplanetary existence, into these other classrooms on other planets to learn incredible things. I mean, to drive one of those UFOs that we see blinking out, I've heard that it takes 20,000 years, because we've gone from reincarnation is an unconscious thing. Incarnation is conscious. So you can choose how you incarnate. You consciously take all the cells in your body and reconfigure them. And when because you go from being a master on this planet to the bottom of the class on the next planets. And so you go through all the planets, learning how to do all these fantastic things, build enormous spacecrafts, do incredible things as you've mentioned. And then once you've gone through all that, then you go to Saturn, which, as you've said, is the highest planet in our solar system. And I might just read you a little bit from, just to give you a flavor of the eighth freedom, which is Saturnian existence. Because it's the deepest thing I can say. So, so after interplanetary, and after this, you go to solar existence. Then you go and live on the sun, and you make sunlight. So and then after that, you incarnate as a planet. You go through planets. Because consciousness is amalgamating. So, if you think of the consciousness of a planet, imagine Jesus, the Buddha, Lord Babaji. Imagine all the greatest masters. Imagine millions of them, millions of lives more evolved, all merged together. And you have a fraction of the understanding of a consciousness of a planet. So the Earth's on her third cycle of existence, and Saturn is on its eighth. And then eventually you become a sun, and then in a galaxy. And even as a galaxy, you can't go back to God. You can't go back to the source because you haven't transmuted matter. So even then, our consciousness has to reach such incredible levels. But anyway, Saturnian existence, which is the eighth freedom. After the life stream has gained experience by living and serving on other planets in the solar system, it is then ready to be introduced into an even greater, fuller, more complete, more aware cycle of existence. It is presented to the lesser solar lords for initiation. After this initiation, it is then introduced into the Saturnian life cycle. At this time, it is neither male nor female, but both, in the highest possible sense. The Saturnian cycle starts with an introduction through the logos of the planet itself into Saturnian service. From here, the life stream gradually advances until it is ready to be introduced into the primary life cycle of the planet. It enters this primary life cycle as a cosmic master, and gradually becomes amalgamated with another life stream, vibrating in nearly the same manner until it becomes sixfold. The next major initiation causes a division between this life stream and all others. It travels to some place outside of your solar system and spends the equivalent of 125,000 of your terrestrial years in meditation. After this, it returns to Saturn, fully proven. I think meditation is, so we go from concentration, contemplation, when you contemplate on something, and then meditation is a state. Meditation is a word wrongly used in our vocabulary. Meditation is like an incredibly high state. From here, it goes into the primary hall of initiation upon the sun to receive the secret doctrines. It returns to its planet, and as a light of the supreme interplanetary council, it shineth. Such a one is capable of a division of consciousness, which allows it to inhabit up to 1,860 positions in the same time continuum at one and the same instant. In fact, some of the perfects are able to double this feat. So if you imagine you're an ovoid at that point, about 30 to 40 feet in height, but you're perfectly still, but at the same time, because you've rejected all free will, you have perfect freedom. So you can send out your consciousness into other form. You create other forms throughout the galaxy. Such a one is not limited because of limitation. Such a one has great freedom because it has rejected all freedom. Such a one has access to all mind because it has consciously and superconsciously on the intuitive levels rejected all mind. Such a one is all silent and yet all sound, is stillness and yet all movement, is a single entity made up of the amalgamation of two, yet is all entities. It is the flame. It is the guiding light which shows us all the way through our darkness. It is an enactment of the supreme sacrifice, everlasting service. This is freedom. This is freedom offered to all life streams. It depends upon the effort they expend as to whether or not they approach this goal in billions or trillions of lives, or whether they will accomplish these things in less time. Such a one as this is revered by all. Through such a being as this shines a spark of the absolute which we can see for ourselves, for we cannot see the absolute itself, only its manifestation. These are the masters of the planetary system, who are actively engaged in helping all life streams to evolve out of their darkness, their ignorance, their suffering. The wheel turned twice, consciousness was born. The wheel turned 4 times, consciousness evolved up to interplanetary levels. The wheel turned 1,980 times, and consciousness would evolve up to the secondary Saturnian level. The wheel turned 9,458 times, and consciousness was evolved up to primary Saturnian level. Take this into the silence with you. You will be better when you come out of it. Voice down.
Very deep, very fascinating. It sounds like you're describing the 5D, 6D consciousness. It starts to lose its need to have a form, and it's able to exist solely as a light being. And this light being is already at that state where it's all pervasive. It's at that level where it's not in a concentration meditation. It's more of just a being of meditation. There's no more effort involved. It's just beingness. Because like you said, if you have a meditation where concentration is involved, that's still sort of a grasping, a craving, an action. But the higher realms that you were reading about, these are just a beingness. There's no more effort. There's no more action. It's just already pervading in that cosmic peace that as you go up higher and higher, it just there's no need to poke to poke at it.
So what do you think level of density was the Master Jesus then, or the Buddha, for example?
I think that they were able to reach the Buddhic consciousness because that's the only way they can activate the light body.
So they were like beings.
When they activated, there's many Buddhas that came to our planet. And the Buddha known as Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava, he attained the light body, just as Jesus did when Jesus was in the cave or the tomb. So the moment a being activates their light body or their rainbow body, as it's called in Buddhism, that's already the Buddhic consciousness. There's no higher state because at that moment you return back to the entire logos of all, which is the non-dual state of the universe. That Buddhic consciousness is the pure non-dual state that I think that is necessary to attain the light body. So at the moment of death, Jesus and the Buddhas that attained this state, I think that they were actually going to the highest where there's no more suffering. Everything, all the karma has been eliminated.
Well, I think the Buddha and Jesus, they attained ascension because with these bodhisattvas, they incarnate through the woman, the womb of a woman, into this life cycle of Earth, so that they can manipulate karma. So the Buddha was from Venus, Jesus was from Venus, Dr. King, he was from Mars. They are definitely lower than Saturnian level because these ones they've merged with another, whereas Jesus they are Maha Bodhisattvas. but they have not. They've not even gone through the process of 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 Saturnian existence. So the Jesus, for example. I mean, we know now the Buddha is in Shambhala now. He is the he is in he is the head of our earth in the highest realm, and Jesus is still working through all the realms. He's there after Ascension. He stayed on earth for 700 years teaching, going through all the different realms because he has a ascended body, so he doesn't need to. He doesn't go through any other life cycles, but he's still, in terms of the evolution, he's still. He would say so himself. He knows. I think it was what was the name? Saint Germain, who was also an ascended master in the Great White Brother. He said that he knows beings as far above him as he is as far above as an ant.
Right.
And so we can't really comprehend these things, but an adept, even an adept, which is not a master, has worth to humanity as a city of people. So imagine what a master is. And so then imagine what a Mahabodhisattva is, like Jesus or the Buddha. They are, they have greater power than all the armies put together in all the world. All their consciousness is a level far beyond ours. So if to them, they must know people who are as far above them as they are above us, because the perfects of Saturn, you just ask them. You don't question them. They know everything compared to you. So, but even they would say they're no way near the consciousness of a planet, which can sustain life and support the lower aspects of God to go back through evolution. So, yeah.
I understand the question you're asking me now. I think that the ascended beings, they have a choice of whether they want to return back to that logos of a solar system or a sun or an entire galaxy. And once you have that higher state of consciousness, I think you are able to know whether you need to go back to those lessons, those soul lessons of being a planet or being a star, for example. So I think it truly depends on, because as a human being, we can only learn so much knowledge that can benefit us to the highest aspect of being a human. But once we are the larger logos, we're going to have a different mission. We're going to have a different soul purpose of what we need to do, because now we have more responsibility, or now we have more potential. So I think that once we are at those levels, we'll be able to think and answer the types of questions you're asking right now.
Because in your life, how in this fragment of your existence, this life cycle you're on now, how far you've come, and because I remember also what it was like before I had my consciousness raised a little bit, a tiny twitch of the thermometer. So, but you can still talk to everyday people. But imagine when you go even higher and even higher and even higher. You're rewriting the map. This map you've made now is not the one you're going to make in another space of time, is it? It's so, but it's this spiritual evolution we're going through is just to have a concept of the absolute is beyond even our comprehension, though. So it makes sense that we need to go through evolution and experience, have years and years of millennia of experience to be able to conceive the next level of consciousness and be able to go there and go there. It's a long road, no?
That's why I think it's so important that we take this precious opportunity that we've been given with our human birth. Because like the Buddhists say, only a human body can attain enlightenment. And once it attains enlightenment, then it has the choice of going to the next whatever you want to call it that we've been talking about all day long. So we have to heal ourselves in this lifetime without carrying any more of this negative karma that has kept us from going to those higher realms, higher states of existence. And as humans, we need to do everything that we can to tame the mind, to make sure that at the moment of death, we have no regrets and we have no attachments to this life. Because only then, once we let go of everything and we have a pure consciousness of peace, that pure consciousness is going to be the vehicle that carries us to all the magical places that you mentioned, all of the levels and dimensions and worlds, planes. That can only be accessed once we heal our karma as a human and all of the karma that it's carried with it from past lives. So this is a very important time to be alive, and we should take every moment to pursue this sort of knowledge that we've been talking about to the best of our ability, and always for the benefit of all beings. That's the most important part.
Yeah. One of the teachings transmitted to the Master Dr. King was the ancient knowledge was creation, preservation, and transmigration. PAUM. And that now it's transmutation, creation, preservation, transmutation. So we have to raise consciousness to a higher level, because in Hindu, for example, this is Shiva. Shiva takes things back to, breaks things down again. So we're now on this process of transmigration. And this is supposed to be I haven't fully grasped it either, but this is supposed to be this is the greatest teaching, one of the greatest teachings taken through Dr. King, is that we have to not just still our thoughts and still our minds, but we have to take our thinking to a higher level. We have to take our actions to a higher level, so that we raise the consciousness of everyone around us and the animals to a higher level. So we go so if through every evolutionary phase, we go up a level, we go up a level. So before, it was always thought that, even the great masters in the past thought that it was breaking it down, but it's actually breaking it up, building it, breaking it down, but to a higher level. You get that upward spiral.
Change will always be inevitable. Everything is constantly changing. Everything is impermanent.
Flames reach up.
So throughout all of our past lives, every form that we've ever had, we've always been changing constantly. Even after this conversation, we've changed into a whole new person. We've never been the same. So just like the center of a wheel that's turning, we're constantly turning, but at the center of the wheel is that stillness. And that has always been with us throughout all of our existences. And that stillness at the center of the wheel is known as the non-dual state, the Tao Te Ching. There's so many names for it. And I think that stillness is what we need to learn how to recognize in this life, because that's who we've always been throughout all form, is that stillness at the center of the wheel. And at the moment of death, if we can recognize that, because at the moment of our death, there's going to be so much change happening in our consciousness and in our body. It's going to create fear. But if we can remember that stillness at the center, that we truly are, that we've always been, this awareness of that stillness is what will keep us in that enlightened state, the stainless state where there's no karma being attached, because there's no grasping, there's no aversion. It's just pure non-dual equanimity. And that is the Buddha mind, the Buddhic consciousness, the 8th density, 9th density. That's where we need to hang out. Basically.
Yeah. Imagine being there for 125,000 years.
During the state of enlightenment, a snap of a fingers can last an eon, and an eon can be gone in a snap of your fingers. So the state of enlightenment is timeless. So those years that you mentioned are more of like vibrations, I think.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Time is one of the limitations. Time is imposed on us. Our concept of time is one of the limitations of our karma.
Yes, absolutely. And it is the realm of samsara. Samsara is the realm of time. And time is what creates lessons and challenges. It creates forgetfulness and it creates ignorance, which is the friction that we need to have a spiritual growth.
I always wanted to mention one other thing too about the days the gods came, which is, was you talking about the flash. And so the greatest, because the earth was halfway through a life cycle, and in July the 8th, 1964, the cosmic masters who comprise the spiritual hierarchy of the solar system performed the most advanced astro-metaphysical operation ever reported to mankind under the guiding genius of highly evolved cosmic intelligence. The streams of divine initiating energies were directed into the very heart of the living, breathing goddess Earth. So the energy came from the sun, and she received more energy than she ever has in her whole life cycle. But it was all carried out by, as I mentioned before, with the satellite number 3, which is in orbit 4 times a year and is magnifying every spiritual action by 3,000 times. And all these other spacecrafts channeled energy through the Great White Brotherhood and the 6 adepts who are, I'll come back to that. But so everything's carried out by the lowest, for karmic reasons. The sun could have just delivered energy to the earth, but it would have destroyed all the plants, all the microbes on Earth, us. So we were screened by beings greater than us, but less than the Loki, of course. And that was before the cosmic initiation, the initiation of our solar system as well. So
That's fascinating that you have corroboration with other things on the Great Awakening map, such as the sphere beings, which are these maybe 6D beings that are able to be as large as the sun, or they can be as small as, a ping pong ball. These sphere beings have been sort of dampening the energy of the sun so that it doesn't destroy our planet and doesn't destroy our consciousness. And it's sort of preparing us for the great solar flash. So it's interesting that you mentioned these types of beings that are within our solar system that are regulating the energy of the sun in a way that's beneficial for all life. And I've heard that story told in different ways. And that's why on the map, I refer to them as a sphere being alliance. But you were definitely talking about a similar type of being that's regulating the life quality of our planet for our spiritual growth.
Have you heard Madame Blavatsky in the Theosophical teachings?
Yes, absolutely.
Because she talks about the ring past knot, which is the ionosphere, and that was put in place after Atlantis to stop us receiving, because we needed to go. We were in 3rd grade. We needed to go back to 1st grade, so we needed to have a lot of textbooks taken away, and so some of these energies were screened, and this ring past knot is gradually coming down the ionosphere, and so we will be erased our vibrations. And maybe this is the great flash you're talking about, but sort of
fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating to hear the story being told from different views. And you telling me this is the first time I've heard somebody explaining it in this way. So that's really good that we have corroboration across different, spiritual teachings.
Yeah.
Spiritual researchers.
So that's what you mean by the great flash, is that we will receive the energies from the sun that are everyone on the other planets, because on the other because there are the 5 elements, the earth, fire, water, air, and ether, the pranas emanated from the sun. And so as we evolve, we exist in different elements. So we came from the water, we've come out of the water, we're on the land now, we're in the air. And then when we go and live on other planets, we exist in the ether. Yeah. We can exist without air. We just can exist on the pranas from the sun. The other beings on Mars and Venus, they don't need to breathe air like we do. And then eventually we go to live on the sun. We exist in fire, the last element. So
the great solar flash is believed to have occurred every 25,900 years. So every time it happens on Earth, it creates an evolution of consciousness. And if you look at the ice drills that they do in Antarctica, they drill these really deep holes, and they look at the layers of ice, and you can see the years of the Earth, what happened during each year. You can find these pockets of 25,900 years where there'll be indication that there was some sort of cosmic event that changed the landscape, that changed the consciousness, that changed the microbes at the time. It would advance their consciousness like a stepping, going upstairs, instead of a gradual evolution of all life. All life just magically evolves at these steps of 25,900 years. And it seems to be whenever this flash occurs and accelerates the consciousness of living life, as if it's a sort of universal program that occurs for all solar systems. It's like a program of the logos to evolve itself in a way that is beneficial for the spiritual growth of all beings. Because a being cannot just stay an animal repeatedly. It has to have a boost of consciousness in some way. And that's why some people believe that the evolution theory taught by Darwin was just fabricated at the time to fit whatever corporate agendas. But the true evolution was referred to as stepped evolution. And it occurs whenever this solar flash comes and pushes our consciousness to a higher level, which I think is very fascinating. And if you look at the archaeological records of our planet and really study it from this viewpoint, you'll start to see why the ancient monuments were built at the times they were built. And they always correspond to this 25,900 year cycle in some way. Even the Great Pyramids refer to it. Within the construction of the pyramid, you'll find, the secrets that tell of this number and this age that repeatedly occurs, not just on our planet, but I think on other planets that orbit stars in our entire galaxy. Whenever the stars reach a certain level where they pass through the galactic plane, because all the solar systems go up and down like this as they travel around the galaxy. So every time they pass through the galactic plane, there's a higher density of energy that makes the light emit from the sun. It's like a natural flash. A solar sneeze is what it's referred to. It just pushes all the light one level up until the next 25,900 years. And this is sort of what's been shared in the Law of One, and other metaphysical conscious researchers have found these secrets that are written in all of our ancient history.
Yeah, there's always these seasons. Everything is seasonal. No, it's as above, as below. We have 4 seasons on this Earth. There must be these seasons in the other planets, but there's these Kali Yuga, these yugas as well, and they say in these measures of time. But I think I've just found this, the estimated time since we were introduced from Maldek to this Earth was 18,643,015 years ago. And then we were 100 to 200,000 years on the lower and higher astral planes. Then with 13.1 million years, we were inside the Lemurian civilization. Then the Lemurians was destroyed because of the Brahma weapon, they called it, and also Indra's dart. They call it in these ancient Vedic texts, because we developed these nuclear weapons. And then 3.5 million years within the civilization of Atlantis. Then 800,000 years after the ruins, after the destruction of Atlantis. And then it's about 5,115 years since the start of Kali Yuga, after the death of Lord Sri Krishna.
Fascinating.
Big numbers.
Yeah, some of those numbers I haven't heard of. But on the map, I had put the year 500,000 something having to do with Maldek. And then on the map, there's also the Mahabharata, nuclear war from the Vedas, and Atlantis is definitely on the map, having to do with this ancient civilization that was located all over the earth, not just one central location. But a lot of the ruins from those times of Lemurian, Mu, Atlantis, all the different names that it had, a lot of those civilizations are now being uncovered in Antarctica, which is where a lot of secret military activity is being performed, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But they're
Because
finding
the
these
Earth turned on her own.
ancient civilizations.
That's why there was coal underneath
It was
the Earth.
warm at that time.
Yeah.
So that's why they were able to build ancient civilizations on top of one another. So when they go to find these ancient civilizations, there's not just one, there's like layers of them. So layers of time have built, different pyramids that have been under layers and layers of civilizations. So definitely they're finding Lemurian technologies and ancient civilizations that still have technology intact. That's the fascinating thing about the secret space program, is that they are actually finding these ancient structures within our Earth that are telling a whole new tale of how we came to be. And they're protecting this knowledge. They don't want to release it, obviously. So it's up to researchers like you and I to study the secret space program and all of the things that they've found on their excavations, not just on this planet, but on the moon, on Mars, and other bodies throughout our entire solar system. The secret space program is a fascinating rabbit hole that corroborates all of the data that we've been talking about, all of the ancient stories, all of the higher dimensional realms of consciousness of the planets. All of these secret space program researchers are aware of these things too. But secret space program is like a military aspect, okay? It's like a military aspect trying to find out these secrets of our true history. We have channelings, we have religions, ancient religious texts, and then we have the secret space program, which is like this technologically advanced group of negatively oriented beings and corporations that go out and explore the solar system. And they sort of keep and hide all of this information from humankind because they don't want us to know our true history. They want to have a control over what happens on Earth. So he who controls history controls the planet. And when you study the secret space program, you get to learn about all the ETs they encountered, all of the ancient civilizations that exist throughout our solar system. And you get to find out they even encounter evidence of Maldek explosions in the solar system. When they go out to the asteroid belt, they can find remnants of the ancient civilizations within the rubble and the debris. So that's why it's so fascinating to corroborate information from ancient texts and channelings. And then you have the secret space program, which is like the new technological aspect that's bringing in confirmation to what's true, what's really happened. You know, we have all of these different stories and we're piecing it together. That's the whole point of the map, is to piece together all of these different areas of metaphysical research that nobody has any clue about. But you and I here are talking today. We've been able to piece together a bigger picture of our reality through the things that I've heard of and things that you've heard of.
Yeah.
And this is how we are creating our new Earth, is from having these conversations, learning who we truly are and how to become those highest states of beingness.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. You have to corroborate if it corroborates with the ancient teachings. And that's with the Theory Society, is that it matches up with the ancient teachings, and it's in the heritage. Because one of the reasons, so Dr. King, he came here because he was going back to the space program. He was incarnated here from Mars. He was an advanced master. It took an incredible amount of karmic manipulation for us to get him. So he was born in England. He did 10 years of advanced yogic training. He had a day job, and he would, in the 1950s in London, and after work would do 8 hours yoga. Imagine that, like pranayama, mantra, solid. And he went so advanced, he became a he opened the ground chakra, and so he could go into, he went into such elevated states, you know, not breathing for days, and and he got taught by different masters. Shivananda came over in a projected form from India and taught him. He had masters teach him. He learned Tibetan mudra yoga, which is one of them very advanced teachings. And so he projected astrally all the time. So he went through all the different realms, because he said that I think there are 13 evil entities, 13 people accumulated, have lived for many thousands of years, lengthening their lives. And I think a couple of them are still in physical bodies, and the rest are on the lower astral planes. So these that run everything, that are behind all the deep state, the cabal, they run our world. You know, our world is run by the dark forces, but they exist in the lower astral realms. That's where, so all these wars, all this hatred, all this me against you, everything is because they feed on negative energy. That's what sustains them. So his mission here, he was a Jedi, basically. He was with 3 other adepts in physical bodies, 2 other adepts on the astral, and the 6th adept was Lord Babaji. And so their mission was to break up the leadership of the dark forces. So who came to be known as Satan, who arranged for the murder of Jesus, who was thousands of years old, and it was a brilliant black magician. You know, he lived at the time of Jesus as a renunciate, as above as below. The white magicians live. The greatest black magicians live as the greatest white magicians. They don't worry about fancy clothes and having big parties. You know, they're living as you know, with complete self control. You know, they've controlled when those guys fight, it's the battle of concentration. And who has the most concentration, best concentration wins. So Satan at that time had split his consciousness into 3 different beings. There was a woman and 2 men. I'm not sure I haven't heard the whole tapes, because it's still classified. And he, together with the others, he transmuted Satan. So he split up its consciousness. And this has enabled us, because he would have taken over the world at that time in the 1960s. And he also fought the android, which was an AI, a very advanced AI from another civilization, but which could create thought forms about 40, 50 miles long. It could have taken over all the realms in a matter of minutes. And because of the primary initiation of Earth, it had to make its move at that time. So Dr. King came, and he won the Armageddon, the apocalypse, which was predicted. It happened, but just not on this physical realm. It happened on the lower astral realms, which was a war of immense proportions, but basically 6 white lights together with a few other followers. And they won this war, but obviously we've still got the remnants of the dark forces in the lower astral realms, the militaries and the black magicians. And as you're saying, they also have control of, they pull the strings on this realm still, but it's not as bad as it was, thanks to the 6 adepts, who are the greatest masters ever to come to this earth. Even the Master Jesus said. When Dr. King also channeled the Master Jesus, who updated his Sermon on the Mount with the 12 blessings, which gives a cosmic element to his teachings, so that we send energy to the living, breathing Mother Earth, the Sun, the galaxy, the supreme lords of karma, the great laws of creation. So there's all these levels above us. So it does overlap a lot with what you were saying, and I think we filled in a lot of blanks today.
Very amazing. The AI component is something that is pervasive throughout our universe. And whenever the secret space program goes on their missions, they always encounter beings that have been transformed by this AI. It's sort of like an ancient signal that can latch onto biological life, and it changes them into machines. It takes the soul out of creation. This AI seems to be sort of an antagonist to the creator. And it sort of creates the spiritual catalyst to overcome evil and find truth and light. So without this AI antagonist to the creator, there wouldn't be a spiritual catalyst in our universe to have challenges, to want to grow and to want to become more of our God nature. So it's interesting that you mentioned AI back in the 60s, whereas today the AI is actually more well known in all of its aspects, whether it's the safe aspects of AI or whether it's the dangerous aspects when it has to do with technology that can take over consciousness. So that's always been something that even the highest beings deal with. They deal with this machine technology that's able to take over biological creation and create darkness from light.
I guess even the AIs, they're still, if they're in manifestation, and anything in manifestation is a part of God. No, there can't be nothing in manifestation, which is not by definition. So they're all part of the divine plan, even if they're not really our favorite parts.
Exactly. That's why it's so fascinating to study about the ancient AI. And it's something that the secret space program does encounter throughout the galaxy. And is a very pervasive, violent threat to all life. So that's why it's very interesting that the Great Solar Flash, when it occurs, it's known to destroy all of the AI within our solar system for 1,000 years. And that's the same number that's found in the Bible, the 1,000 years of peace. So it's very interesting that the sun has this natural defense mechanism built into it that will flash every 25,900 years, eliminating the AI threat in our solar system, which will allow all of the benevolent ETs to come into our planet and help us and teach us. But it can only occur after the great solar flash. That's what I've researched. That's what I've heard from some of my favorite, spiritual consciousness researchers, piecing it all together.
I think the AI was responsible for the destruction of Maldek. I think it might have been dormant there, and it was dormant in our lower astral realms for millennia.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So when it's dormant, maybe it's not susceptible to this, because these things are so advanced. They're beyond our. Even the adepts, they couldn't have destroyed the AI because it's all about karma. So they had to. I've heard somewhere that there are AIs, they're banned from this galaxy, I think, that they're so advanced that they can tap into the logi. They need so much energy, they have to tap into the logi of a planet. And they can create beings have a karmic pattern, that level of detail. So that because when they create something, if something has a karmic pattern, then that's when the law, because God manifests as the law of karma. That is how God manifests in our universe. So if they could do that, then they can tip the scales of balance, because with this AI, the adepts, they couldn't defeat it, but they could get into such a position that the laws of karma could come in and just put down their hands and just in a second fix the whole situation.
That's crazy stuff.
There was another time, because they also taught us in the teachings. There's so much talk of these space spores, and when you can go, basically viruses, tiny little viruses, and they can eat down to through everything on a planet, even down to the Earth, that kill the whole thing, make everything dust. And so when a planet reaches a karmic position where it's vulnerable to these, as our planet is at the moment because of our behavior, I think we were attacked with these karmic with some spores from another civilization, and Mars Sector 6, they put a force field around the Earth, and they let in a tiny space for one of these spores to come in, and it was a spore that would have eaten the low guy of the planet, would have killed the Earth. And because of that, because we destroyed Maldek, and because the Earth is not allowed to be harmed, because the Karmic lords have deemed it so, within that 1 second, the wheels, the hands came into motion, and the force was ejected from our solar system.
This is the deepest stuff I've ever heard, man.
Well, that's
Crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Whew. I don't think I've ever been that deep before, man.
Cosmic chess. These guys, they build capital spaceships, which are so big they can't even have a battle in our solar system because there's not enough space for them.
Gotcha.
They would hit planets, and they zap between the realms, and then it's a war. A war can take place in a matter of seconds because everything's such a high speed. It's
even the sphere beings, they can make themselves as large as the solar system, but they are timeless, so they can exist as any being, any size, any form. That's how they're so big and small at the same time.
Wow.
It's all through consciousness that their ships are able to take any form that they want. 5D, 6D beings are able to change the shape of their ships. They're more of light ships. They're not actually metal nuts and bolts type of ships that we are so used to seeing on Star Wars. So the higher the beings, the more they're able to pervade all of reality with their consciousness, I guess. That's how people see light beings all the time. And these light beings are like these balls that float around. They're often described in UFO sightings. But a lot of the UFOs that I've seen, they're just light. You cannot say that they're ships. They're more of light amorphous beings that are small or large, whatever they want to be at that time. So at that consciousness, you can make yourself into an armada of whatever size necessary. But to the human eye, we're going to perceive size, we're going to perceive time and distance. But to them, it's all one.
It's just beyond our level, like the Hollywood charade. You see they're 2,000 years in the future flying through space, and they've got this orange glow at the back of the ship, pushing them through space. I mean, they can only, science fiction can only be 20 years ahead.
Yeah.
Because we can only conceive. We couldn't understand if we made a movie of this. We couldn't understand it. It wouldn't really make sense to us.
Right.
There was another.
Just like in 2001, Space Odyssey, Kubrick. When people saw the monolith, I think they imagined it as some metallic object. But if you think about it today, the monolith is sort of like the Great Awakening map. It's just this conduit of information. It reveals. It's not like an object that you can touch and hold and own and hug it. It's sort of this conduit that brings its beholder information. And that's what the monolith was able to do, is able to transport somebody to their highest state of beingness, their light body, that rebirth into a new consciousness. I think that monolith was showing us the true nature of the human condition. It was just information. I don't think people really understood the point of information and enlightenment. The more that we know about oneself, the more that we are closer to the source. And the Great Quickening map is sort of like this artifact that just exists out of time. And whoever comes across it, they're going to be able to find a path through it that will show them aspects of themselves and their world that they've never known before. And hopefully it will help them pursue that ascension that we've been talking about. The ascension of the greatest masters is attainable by all of us, you and I, in this life. We can do it, but we're so distracted with all of the material stickiness of our reality. So the map is therefore pushing people forward to attain that ascended masterness within us now, not in another lifetime. We may not have that chance. So it's the best to, when you come across that type of knowledge, for anybody listening to this, pursue that which makes you the most joyful and most enthusiastic, because that's where your heart truly is. And just keep researching, keep reading, keep going on to your spiritual adventure. It's going to lead you to the true path that you've been born to discover in this lifetime. But I think people need that type of catalyst of watching a sci-fi movie or discovering the map or finding a meme on the internet that just changes their life, helps them dig deeper into who they can truly be. Some people don't even know that they can be something different. So I think it's really important that you and I have this type of conversation, because we're going to inspire people to become Mahasiddhas and ascended masters. That's the whole point of everything that I do, is to help people become an ascended being in every shape and form that they come in.
Well said. I mean, yeah, we've been discussing the details of our different different knowledge we've come across, but yeah, we're agreed on the end goal, yeah, and the way we have to.
The end goal is after climbing through all of the nitpicky inner researchings that we've done today, of all of this crazy stories and channelings, you can go into that stuff for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But like I said, at the moment of death is when the true test occurs. And if your consciousness is able to hold itself in a state of peace, in a state of equanimity, no judgment, no fear, then you're going to be able to truly decide the best outcome for your future, whether it's higher realms, whether it's pure lands, whether it's rebirth. If your consciousness is healed now, you'll be able to have more control or more decision of where you'd like to go during the bardo.
Yeah, and we all judge ourselves. We are our own. There's not some divine being that judges us. We judge ourselves at that moment. And going back full circle to Saturn, the halls of self-judgment are on Saturn. So after every incarnation cycle, we go back to Saturn and we come here again to fulfill whatever lessons our higher selves have deemed necessary for us to go through.
Saturn is a very powerful spiritual place, and it exists on so many realms of dimensions. And it's always been a mysterious place that not even the secret space program is allowed to venture. It's been said that all the secret space program ships are not allowed to be near Saturn. There's some sort of protective barrier. It's a very mysterious spiritual place. And there's a lot of secrets that are being held of our entire universe within that dimension sphere, I guess you could call it. So it's really interesting that you talk about it in this way, because there's just so much about Saturn that we don't understand. And there's so much light and darkness within all of it. So it's very hard to swim through all of this knowledge about it and figure out what's really going on and what do we need to know in this life that makes a difference without, being too distracted by all of the different beliefs of what's so important about Saturn.
Is the secret space program a force for good or for evil?
Think of it like this. They are a bunch of corporations. They are a bunch of Earth-based aerospace corporations who have been able to secretly build anti-gravity craft. And they use these craft to go to other planets and to meet other extraterrestrial races and to trade intergalactically. And they also build these armada fleets where they go and conquer other star systems with the aid of negative beings, such as the reptilians or the Dracos. And a lot of these beings are based within the dimensions of Saturn. So the secret space program happens to be allied with these negative beings, which is very unfortunate. That's why it's more of a negative thing. It's not like Star Wars where you have the Rebel Alliance. It's more of like the Empire from the Star Wars, where they go out and conquer other star systems with other ET beings. And it just happens to be that sad of a story until we finally awaken on this planet to the existence of extraterrestrials. Once our planet is aware that we're not alone, then we're going to be able to learn about our secret space programs and all the things that they found. And then we'll be shown the ancient civilizations such as Atlantis, lower Earth, and inner Earth. So it's like this long, drawn out, full disclosure narrative where you and I are aware of these things, but the rest of the population are totally in the dark. And that's why they live in misery and suffering and confusion. They don't know their true history. They don't know about all of these things occurring in our solar system. They don't even know that meditation exists. They don't know that they can change their mind and change their body to light. They're just in the rat race, 9 to 5, trying to make money.
Mm.
So we have to be compassionate for these people and realize that it's not their fault. It's just the system has kept them in this chase for material instead of the spiritual wonder that's all around them at all times. And the more information that we have about these things that we're talking about, the more people are going to start waking up and wanting to know more and finding out the secrets, and then making that leap of consciousness where we become a 4D civilization. We start to time travel. We start to have instantaneous travel, because once we have free energy and anti-gravity, then there's no more limitations materialistically for us. And that's already where the secret space program exists. They already have 4D technology. They are already traveling backward and forward in time and across our solar system in an instant. They already have the anti-gravity technologies. So it's just a matter of us finding out about these and then implementing them into our society. But not the way that Elon Musk is doing by using outdated technology. We have to be using free energy, anti-gravity technologies that these secret space programs already have, and they've been using for over 60 years.
Do you think because when we see UFOs now that from other planets, those are ascended masters. It takes them 20,000 years to learn how to drive one of those things. In one of the battles, I heard that he just takes off his body, hangs it up on a hook, and he's an ovoid being driving with performing incredible feats faster than a frame can handle. So do you think there really is possibility that these secret space program within that 60 years could have reached that level of not talking technology, but consciousness to be able to do anything approaching that?
I don't think that they are consciously at that level, but technologically, they are able to have these sort of crafts that can levitate anti-gravity. They can also go through matter. They can go through an entire planet and end up on the other side. So technologically, they can do this, but consciously, these people are not ascended at all. They're still in lower states of consciousness because they're using this technology for negative reasons. So you have to think of this human race as this confused group of people who have this technology, but they haven't been able to make their bodies into this technology. They're not able to become light beings. They're instead just using these craft to travel at great distances instead of using their consciousness. So it's just a matter of time until the technology is able to fall away and our consciousness is able to take over.
But just
I
imagine
think that's the whole point of Ascension.
if you take a cowboy and put him in a truck, he's for cowboy from 100 years ago, just wouldn't be able to work the levers and have the idea of, it would take him a long time to be able to handle it,
Yes.
no?
A lot of the UFO craft are consciousness assisted. So
Yeah.
you can sit in it and it will just open up a portal to wherever you're thinking, and then it will go into it. And
But then you have to have
you don't,
super control. It's like astral projection. When you project astrally, if you think of somewhere, you go there on your own planet. And if your concentration lapses, you go there. Some people, when they begin to project astrally, not that I can do it, believe me, but they just bounce around. You know, there's a blur and then there's somewhere else because they haven't
Yes,
achieved this concentration. So for anyone in the military to have that sort of consciousness is just, it's a bit hard to believe, isn't it?
they don't have that consciousness, but they do have technology that's able to do those types of things. And also, I've heard really fascinating stories of people who astral travel. Some people will astral project into space, and they'll accidentally bump into a UFO. So like there's some sort of materiality to it
Oh yeah,
where their consciousness is bouncing off
the
an
astral
object
body is a physical.
rather than going through it. So in the astral realm, there is some sort of dimensionality to objects,
I've
but you can
woken up many
also go
times
through them as well. Yeah.
because everyone projects when they go to sleep, and many times I've woken up with jolts because I've fallen, you know, and I've
Yeah. It's very, very fascinating. Like when I've had accidental astral projection experiences, like some of my earliest ones, I would rise out of my body, but I would bounce off the ceiling. It's as if my consciousness didn't believe that I could go through it. And at that moment, the astral body either decides to have some sort of materiality to it, or if it's just a conscious thing. I'm not sure, but it's very interesting that I've been able to bounce and slide off of physical objects in our realm rather than going through them. But I have gone through the ceiling before. So, I mean, I guess it's just a matter of how deep you are into that moment of consciousness, whether you're too awake or you're too asleep. But it's fascinating that I've heard of people astral traveling into space, bumping into UFO craft and actually seeing ETs inside, like peering through it with their head. And the ET is surprised to see them. So it's very strange that in the astral realm, there's form, but you can also manipulate it.
well, it's physical, you know, because people think the astral is a purely energy space, but it's not. It's exactly as physical. It's in fact it's even more physical because the atoms are closer together. Just astral, it's just at a different frequency vibration, so it's purely physical. It is physical as well. So that's continuation of consciousness. It's very important to understand. Yeah, I know one guy, one student, he was learning to astral project, and he did it with the door closed because he didn't want anyone to come in, and he took it many times for him to realize that he could just go through walls. It didn't really matter. So we limit ourselves even when we raise our consciousness. We wouldn't be here having this conversation if we weren't very limited. Because I could just come over to you now, or I could. I'm in this classroom here because I'm at this level now. If I was smarter, I wouldn't be doing this.
Or you could be a bodhisattva who chooses to come back and help awaken everybody after awakening themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So many aspects of yourself.
Yeah, I'm not even. There's no way, because it's like some people say, you know, you dipped at 3D, you can't exist. If you're not happy at 3D, you're never going to be at 5D. You have to be excelling now. You know, from reading about all these masters, if I have trouble with eating, I have trouble with, you know, I'm struggling in this level of consciousness, let alone I definitely don't deserve promotion. I'm just fumbling my way around this level. So yeah.
If you can hold peace within yourself and in all circumstances, then you're walking the path of the ascended masters. Because no matter what situation they're in, they will always hold that peace and compassion for all beings, no matter what. So that's what we have to practice in the simplest way, and just carry that with us throughout our life. The simplest teaching, the simplest practice is to always be at peace and have compassion for beings, no matter what they've done to us at all times. And from there, going to grow and evolve into different spiritual teachings that you will integrate in time. But I think that's the most intrinsic of all.
Well, I think Dr. King said he met all the ascended masters, but he'd never met a saint. They're still people, you know. Like one of those yogic masters, I think it was in India or somewhere. He had one student come to see him who wanted to wanted to receive the teachings. No, he was really hungry for the truth. He was like you and me, he was desperate for the truth. And so the master, the beautiful, peaceful man, he grabbed his back of his head and held his head under the water so he couldn't breathe. And he held him down there for a good length of time. And then he burst his head out of the water, and the students, the would-be students, gasping for air. And he says, when you were in the water, what did you want most? And he said, air, master. He said, go away. When you can come back and say, honestly, truth is what you wanted, then I will take you as my student. These are tough guys.
I like it.
Yeah. But, all right, we've gone almost 2 hours here, so I'm sure we could go another 4, but yeah, still only scratched the surface. So.
Thank you, Jack. That's been a very deep conversation and a very rare one that I've had with you today.
Oh, well, no thanks to me. Please check out the 9 Freedoms is the best, is this teachings, and it's channeled by Dr. King.
I've read of him, but I've never picked up the book. So I've heard of his research throughout all of my 12 years of metaphysical research. I just never picked it up like I picked up the Law of One.
Wow, you should definitely do it, because the Ethereal Society they perform all these cosmic missions. They still do today. So we take spiritual energy, the kind you do when you give Reiki or you pray, it's a physical, it's an energy, and they put it into batteries, which have, I think, ground crystals in them. And they release these at times of crisis or into psychic centers of the earth. They're doing it now every day. It's just there's a couple of thousand members of the Ethereal Society, but it's like a spiritual commando force. So they're doing all these missions, which have, in terms of karmic manipulation, have a greater good than all the world's religions put together. So, according to the masters. So it's definitely worth pursuing.
Thank you very much. If anybody wants to follow along in the Great Awakening map, they can go to awakening5d.co and they can download it for free and study it and follow along our podcast.
Okay. And they can buy a printout as well if they want to support you financially or have a beautiful printout. They can get that delivered to them. Is that right?
If they like to support my work, they can purchase the physical poster or t-shirts. But the map is free to download and freely share for anybody who wants to go down the deepest rabbit holes known to mankind.
And you're also on Instagram. You have a fantastic Instagram place. What is that?
My Instagram is 5D Awakening Consciousness.
All right. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes. And well, it's been a real pleasure. I had a great time chatting to you, champ.
Thanks so much for finding me, Jack.
No worries. Let's check in further down the line, compare some more notes.
Thank you.
All right, mate. Bye-bye.